in empowering yourself and in empowering each other as women, uplifting each other as women, we tend to demoralize the man, and we expect him to still have respect for us. That is where I find that there is a bit of a disconnect, because I cannot see us trying to diminish someone else and believe at the same point in time that we are uplifting ourselves. So what do we do as women, because we're on that topic today, what do we do as women to empower the community, not just each other, but the community? Because we have to help men, children. Okay, we're looking at it from a gender perspective, so we want to help men to respect us, because they always say teach people how to love you. And so the only way you could do that is by loving yourself. So that is now the point that both Yohance and Alvin made in terms of equipping yourself with certain things. We speak about women on women violence, and it is very, very prevalent as well, women on women violence. And we tend to say it's just the men who do it to the women. But when you look at one in the same sex relationships, we don't talk about things like that, where women who are in same sex relationships are abusive to their partners. But you do hear about that all the time. It's probably in the minority, right? And the other thing is, women on a regular day, we say to each other, woman power, and I uplift you, and you're a queen, you're so beautiful and all of that. But do we really mean it? Let's be real, women. Do we really mean it? For me, I'm a vibes person. I pick up vibes real easy. And I find that we have some mocking pretenders out there. But maybe it's just in the process. It's in the process of getting to where we really want to be. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because Rome wasn't built in a day. But I want to ask the gentlemen here, have you noticed that as well? In terms of women being respected, for men to be able to do that, do you think that we are encouraging each other in this space authentically to be able to achieve that?
Well, that's a good point you raised, and I'm glad you raised it as a woman, because sometimes when men raise it, they get some heat for it, right? But
I'm getting heat
even
for
even as you're saying, a woman may diminish a man, right? Diminishing of somebody, man or woman, that's violence.
it.
That's
Is.
an intent to hurt, right? It may not be physical, but
Yeah.
and you just said about you're a person with energy and feel energy and vibration. So violence is an energy, right? So forget how it's manifested first. It's an
Yeah.
energy. So even if you say, well, boy, I just given something trivial. Boy, your head big. And I say your head big or you're stupid. And I say it all the time. That's to diminish, that's violence, that's an intent to hurt. So the
Yeah.
vibration is violence. So then it's very possible it will be met back with violence. And your version of violence and my version of violence may be different. Now, I'm not condoning any form of violence, but also understanding where, and you're saying, women, so you said some women in terms of the empowerment, right? If if you know, well, I'll say hopefully know or could analyze, if I provoke this person, and I'm not even saying man or woman now, if I provoke this person or I be violent against them with my words, this person could react violently physically, and that is a possibility, right? And if I could take that, because you shouldn't be violent with somebody if you're not prepared for violence. Now, I say you shouldn't, because many people don't do that. Many people violent and think that nothing will happen to them, right? And again, this is not even male female, because um, when I was in university, I remember a lot of this is female lesbian couples had a lot of violence in the all female dorm. It had a lot of violence because I was an RA. So as an RA, as a resident assistant, all the other RAs would speak to each other, and the RAs in the all female dorm said that the violence among women and same sex couples was high. And then they asked us, well, what we experienced, and we say, well, of course, it is less. Not saying it didn't happen, but
Right.
they were explaining, and we were wondering why. right? And we didn't have a definitive answer because we didn't interview. It wasn't like a scientific study or anything like that. But one person said that because the general narrative is that men are violent, when women are in same-sex relationships, they put their guard down and don't expect any violence. So even if physical violence, so even if they are emotionally violent, they don't expect physical violence. So they are less or more inclined to do it because they think the consequences wouldn't be physical. What do you think about that?
Mhm.
Hey, interesting, eh?
Pretty
So
violent.
here's what I according to a study at CDC, 43.8% of lesbian relationships, the persons have mentioned that they have experienced violence. 43.8. So it,
43, that's pretty high. And do they have a comparison to heterosexual? I know CDC does US, so we
yeah.
have US statistics, but is there a comparison to heterosexual or same-sex male relationships?
Oh, all right. Let me pull that up.
While you're pulling it up in the meanwhile, Celine, what do you think about what I just said in terms of my experience in university and the
And people think
same-sex women?
same. So yeah, because I really, really think that because it's not the norm, because that's not the conversation. The conversation is we want to end violence against women and girls, and the understanding is it's being the perpetrators are men. But the violence from woman to woman is very prevalent. It's there. But we don't talk about it because one, you're not seeing it. It's not, you see, this is the next thing with media, the space of media, whether it's social media or mainstream media. This is the thing about it because it's what we are being told. What we are being, what we have, what is being shown to us is what we will take and say, okay, this is what it is. This is the problem. This is the issue. But we don't really hear about those conversations. And you are saying just at the university level, it's happening. What if those relationships are still taking place? I've seen it before, not physically, but I've seen it where this person, I was at a line one time, and this girl is there talking to me. She introduced herself by the pet name, and she's there in the group of us, and she's talking with us like normal. When her partner came, she's like, no, this is her name. Call her by her name. And the way that she said it with authority, I felt uncomfortable. So I was like, what's going on here, boy? But you saw that the girl, she kind of pulled back a little bit. But that is the same behavior you see in an abusive relationship, whether it's heterosexual as well. When somebody feels as though somebody else is in control of them, and when that person is in their presence, they feel as though, okay, I now have to cross my T's and dot my I's. I mean, you know about that,
Can
but
I say this? One of the issues we have, and now we're diving into it, is that there is a joy and a love to make men always a victim, always the perpetrator. And so it is that we speak about women, it's kind of like the term toxic masculinity.
oh God.
When we say toxic femininity, everybody get upset. What? Where? Why? So
But it is there, it is there.
apparently, only males can be toxic, but women are angels and perfect.
We didn't
Except,
matter, right?
and so if it is that they talk about the woman on woman violence, then there's an issue because now we're coming together and saying this is the problem, those men over there. And so when we have to say we're the problem, we women over there, then some women become uncomfortable because when you're turning it onto yourself and you have to examine yourself, not everyone as
Mm,
humans, it makes us uncomfortable.
yeah.
So we can't come together and say we have a problem we need to fix
Yep.
unless it's their they're the reason.
Yep.
It's
You have to find somebody to blame.
yeah. I looked up
Exactly.
the data.
Uh-huh.
What they say is that for men on men, well, gay relationships, 26% of men experience intimate partner violence. And it's estimated that 35% of women and 29% of men in heterosexual relationships have experienced physical violence, sexual violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. So those two other options are a lot less than 43.8%.
And that's important because, as you were saying, first Celine and then into Alvin, right? The importance of having the conversations, and even what I said from the start, the importance is telling the truth. Because if we're not telling the truth, then we can't ever solve the problem. And a narrative is not necessarily the truth, right? The
Yeah.
narrative is what whoever is controlling the narrative want everybody to think.
This
And in
man.
gender-based violence, men don't control the narrative,
Yeah.
right? So
Listen,
therefore, even women in their own personal relationship, let's say the same thing we just talked about a lesbian relationship. If women under the delusion that women are not violent, then they also open themselves up to it. This psychologist Jordan Peterson, he had a study, right? And he in his study he was saying, I think it's when he removed physical violence. So if he was judging men and women based on abuse or violence but not physical, if it was all the others, then women are more violent than men in general, right? So we have physical violence because it's the most prominent, right? But there are all the other avenues of violence which we spoke about that could lead to physical, but also, of course, will create victims. And
Yeah.
if and I saying women could be talking about women, if women, even amongst themselves, would not agree that we practice violence too,
Yeah.
right? And therefore, the only way they say knowledge is power. So if we understand how we do it, then we have the power to manage it. So you can
So
empower yourself, women in general, so they understand that I could be a victim, so now I'm aware, I have the power so that I can do things to mitigate it. And then those who have the potential to even be perpetrators also have the knowledge to be able to start managing
yeah.
their emotions.
Yeah.
but I'm enjoying this conversation. But I wanted us, well, still in, look like you had a point, and then I want to shift to something else. I
You
see you
expect me
rub
to,
your hands together.
you really expect me to remember that? No, it's me. Yeah, but I'm just what I wanted to touch on is the Yohance, you hit the nail on the head. It is important to be naked. It is important. Yes, I'm taking a free plug for my podcast, but it is important for you to really acknowledge your own behavior, and it is hard. It is hard to do that because whoever wants to say, "Oh gosh, I'm doing stupidness," and I'm being mean to this person. I shouldn't say this because of how I feel at this point in time.